The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
Preethi Balasubramanian learned from an early age the value of connection. She soaked in the connection with her family growing up in India and naturally worked to bring friends together into that feeling of family as well. Preethi has grown into her life path as an award-winning, certified, experienced administrative and human resources professional, supporting senior and C-suite executives, boards of directors, and leading HR initiatives at various organizations from startups to large multinational corporations. Currently as the owner of her own virtual executive assistant business, the Wonder EA, Preethi provides administrative support to coaches, speakers, and small entrepreneurs. Preethi and I met in her role as the president of the Toronto branch of the Association of Administrative Professionals of Canada, where I have been investing as a longtime partner through Candy Event Consulting, supporting admin pros who plan events. What a joy to learn more about Preethi in our conversation today and be inspired by her unique and infectious way of creating connections. Well, welcome back, everyone. I am so happy to be having this conversation with Preethi all the way from Toronto today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have been a president now with AAP in the Toronto area for how long?
Just this year. So this is my first year as president.
And how's that going for you? That's a big responsibility.
I would say it's fun, but has its challenges, like especially now that we are coming out of the pandemic, and like creating events and programs is a bit of a challenge because some people want to come out in person, some people still don't want to. So trying to get a balance and trying to connect to all the members is a challenge, but it's also fun. I enjoy doing that.
Well, and I think what you're describing is something that so many people are feeling today, is that there's that an appetite to get together, but then it's how does that work and how do we actually re-energize members back to face-to-face gatherings, which is a huge challenge. And we'll get into that a little bit and your work there, as well as your work as a support to many businesses. And I'm excited, the chance that we had to chat a couple of weeks ago and the focus of your admin work, I think is going to be really interesting to a lot of people trying to reinvent themselves now. To start, I would love to ask you what I ask everybody on this podcast to start is, it's all about connection. To me, I talk so much about the value of connection, but what does connection mean to you?
I think for me, connection is the feeling of belonging, that you belong to a certain group, a certain community. So it's just that belonging and that closeness. And it's more like, I would say, like my safe space. So within my community, my connections, like I can be my true self. I can express myself the way I want to and know that's accepted.
It's beautiful. And I was just reading something this morning, actually. I woke up a bit early and I was looking at something, and they were saying that is sort of the ultimate of community, is where you can come and feel safe. And I have had people in my circle say, oh, don't use the word safe because it sounds too intense, or it sounds like there's something wrong. When you talk about safety, what does that look like for you when you feel safe and that you belong in a community?
So by safe, I mean like I said, I can be my authentic self. So sometimes like at a particular work event or at a particular scenario, you tend to wear a mask. What you show isn't like your true self. You tend to portray yourself the way you feel. That's how I should be in that occasion, or that's how people should see me. So that's not your true self. You tend to wear a mask, and for me, I feel like if somebody or a community is like my true connection and I really belong there, then I don't have to wear that mask. I can be like my normal, natural self, and that's accepted. And they know, okay, this is how Preethi is, and it's accepted that way.
I think many of us have learned how to wear a mask, or how, when you talk about your authentic self, sometimes it is revealing who you are, which might feel a little uncomfortable for some people, where to feel safe, it's where maybe you feel a bit vulnerable, and then someone's like, no, that actually is okay, or we're really glad that you're here anyway. And I think with everything that I know about AAP and being a longtime partner with AAP, one thing I really appreciate about the group in general is that there seems to be this welcoming spirit, this idea that we're all in this together. And a lot of admins sometimes feel like they're in the shadows, feel like they are working behind the scenes. And to feel safe is a pretty amazing feeling, I think, for somebody that feels like they, not just that they're hiding themselves, but in their work, they almost have to kind of keep things rolling behind the scenes. When we talk about even safety at work or safety in a workplace, what does that look like when you're actually in a workplace, or you're working with an executive or a team, to feel authentic and yourself and to feel safe within a team environment?
So I would say, like in one of my previous organizations where I worked, so I had that comfort environment there, because basically the boss I was supporting was like, he was like very open, very frank, and like if it was a good thing, he will tell it on your face that it's a good thing that you've done. Likewise, even if it was a wrong thing, he would tell it on your face. Okay, so this is what went wrong. And at the same time, he was also equally accepting of the fact if I did the same thing back to him. So he was the CEO and I was his assistant, but I could still go and tell him, I think in that meeting, that's not how you should have handled that. I felt that didn't go well. And he was willing to accept that. So I think that it was more of the two-way communication that gave me the comfort, gave me the safety feeling there, because then I knew, okay, I can tell him openly what I feel. I don't have to like filter myself and, just be the diplomatic self always.
And there is an element of going with what is standard in a company or what has always been done before. How do you actually create that space where you can be honest and open with somebody that really has, in some ways, your future, or, whether you get that promotion or not, that there is this balance of doing the work, but also speaking in and saying, you know what, maybe this could be done differently. How did you get to that place where you felt safe to do that?
I think like initially, like everybody, like when I was like new in the job, I was like, okay, just sticking to what I'm asked to do, and then sticking to like whatever is the procedure or method already used and things like that. And so I have a background in HR, and when they came to like reviewing we were revisiting the performance appraisal process for the organization. And so that's when like my CEO then asked me like, oh, you have a background in HR. So give me your input. So what do you think? What do you think is working? What's not working with our current system? Or what have you seen in your past roles? And I was like, okay, so should I not kind of tell him and things like that? And he's like, no, I want you to open up. You can tell me even like if it's a negative thing and it's fine. And I think it was more of him encouraging me to say, no, you should come out. You should tell me. And I know I respect your suggestions and I like it kind of thing. So that's what I think made me come out and do it, is one thing. And the second thing I would say is like, the whole team was kind of like that. We were a small team. So the core management team was just 8-10 of us, but then everybody was like that. So everybody was like, it was more like a group of friends working together. We didn't have like the hierarchy and say, oh, okay, so you are my manager, you are my CEO, so I should like look at you that way, and I should okay, I am a subordinate, so I should behave this way. So we didn't have that kind of vibe in the whole organization as such. So I think and it was more, I think, coming down from the leader. So the leader was that way. So kind of the entire organization culture was that way. And everybody was like, comfortable pitching in, telling things to each other. And like, if one of us wrote an email and somebody else had a feedback on it, we'd be like, okay, just get up over the cubicle or something and say, hey, I saw this and that was nice, or that wasn't there. Maybe you should say it this way, kind of thing. So I think it was just a overall culture thing in that place.
Isn't that amazing? And that it actually is coming from the leadership as well. And when you talk about this almost flat model of getting the work done, and whoever, like what you're saying, that maybe they'll just tuck over the cubicle and have a conversation.
Yeah.
For many of us that aren't experiencing that, what a gift that would be to have this team or family feel where there actually is more of a conversation around solving problems or getting the project done. And as you were chatting about your HR background and what you're bringing and letting people know that also is your background. Sometimes we tuck into the work that we're doing or the role that we have, and we forget sometimes that the way that I say this is activate your experience, because every one of us has a world of experience that we're bringing to every single new role.
And especially, I would say, like in my role, like as an executive assistant, I think it's more of like building that strategic partnership with the person you're supporting, and both mutually being able to, trust on the other one. And like, okay, even if she says something, I know like, okay, she always has my back and she's there for me, and like me feeling the same way about the person I'm supporting. I think that's very important. Like, at least like for me, I felt that's very important, because I have in the past like been in organizations where if my manager were to like walk by my cubicle, I'd probably like pause what I'm doing and look around to be like, oh my God, why is he walking here? Did I do something? Did something happen? Because like I have like worked with people like that, where them coming and interacting to you only meant there was something wrong and they were coming to
That's
you.
right. You have to be on guard.
Yeah.
That actually, like you said, feeds into the whole culture. So it's not just between you and leadership or you and the exec, or somehow, for those of you listening, your boss or somebody that's in a superior role to you, but how that actually feeds into the culture and how we're actually interacting with our peers. When you talk about being a strategic partner, that is something that I've really loved about the way AAP approaches how is an admin professional stepping forward and being a strategic partner. In all of your work, your focus as an admin and some of that background and the experience that you're bringing to the table also has a tech focus as well. And can you tell us a little bit about your work as somebody that is not just a general admin support, but that you really have this specialty in technology?
Yes. So like if you look at my experience, like I have about 15 years now, and the majority of it has been like in IT consulting, IT enabled services. So it's been within the IT space, research. That area is where I have always been working. And I think like basically for me, like I like technology. I like learning new technology, or like even so initially when I started my career, everything was in Microsoft Office. But then when I moved into a new role, they were all on the Google platform. So
Okay.
yes, they are similar, but then having to learn some of the newer things or new features on Google and adapt and learn to use that. I think I like doing those things. I like learning new technology. And now, like even from the association standpoint, so yes, though I am the president, I was in charge of social media and website the last couple of years. And now our social media persons often leave for personal reasons. And so now like doing all the graphics on Canva, creating graphics, creating videos, creating flyers for our events, and doing all of that is, yes, I was doing a little bit of it, but now the more I do, the more I'm learning, and I am like enjoying using the Canva platform to create graphics and things like that. So basically, whether it's tech or non-tech, I like to learn new things. I like to keep learning, and I have a whole lot of different admin designations from all over the place, and I tend to keep, I don't know, learning, relearning, upskilling, whatever you call it.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the new technology companies that are coming in, they're startups, they're trying to get, they're passionate about the work that they're doing, or they've got some funding now and they want to move into that space, big time. Where does somebody like you actually move in and support a team like that to keep things rolling, like especially if they're a startup?
Yes.
To make sure that they're organized and they have what they need and that you're actually bringing that expertise to the table?
Yeah, so like in the last organization, in fact, where I worked, we were a startup. So it's like after I joined in is where we implemented a HRIS system and onboarded all the employees to the HRIS system, a different payroll system. So like having like all the HR information in one place. So basically, I think with startups, especially nowadays, like with most of us going virtual and all of it, I think all startups are very highly tech enabled these days. So so to be able to understand what their needs are, suggest like a new system or a new process. So like I created like a expense reimbursement system. So they already had a software which they were using for project management. So which meant it could collect data, it could have data which could be processed. So then to see that as an opportunity and tell them, okay, so you have somewhere where you can collect data. So why not collect the expense data in the same place instead of, going back and forth on an email and maintaining an Excel spreadsheet? So I think trying to find out those opportunities or trying to find out areas where you can help, where you can maybe just modify a few things to get better efficiencies. I think that's kind of where I like to work, and like that's kind of how I contribute.
and I can see how working that way, like you were talking about safety earlier too. And sometimes when a system is strong, when there is a system in place that everybody's getting paid the way that they should, when you're kind of moving away from just a spreadsheet to something a little more or a lot more organized, there is an element of safety in that as well, I think, for companies. And I'm a small business here, and I understand what it means to be able to see something and then you can actually analyze and make better decisions because things are organized in a way that it now not just makes sense, but it's actually leading the company forward.
Yeah, like you said, it's that safety thing and the dependency again, right? So when you have like one person receiving emails and then documenting data out of an email and a spreadsheet or something, then it's so dependent on that one person. And if that one person were to like leave the organization, go on a leave, or like have some personal emergency, then nobody else knows what's happening, or like nobody else has a control over that process. Whereas if it's like on a common platform, it's in a place where everybody can access, everybody can give input in their data or inputs there. It's there for anybody to basically pick up and manage afterwards.
And knowing you and knowing just your warm spirit, but then also this expertise that you bring to the table. I think when people think about having an admin on their team, sometimes they don't understand exactly what does that mean to have somebody there and the value of that long-term to have somebody there feeding in. When we talk about connection, did you see this brewing for you when you were younger? Were there things when you were a kid that you felt like you were gathering people together, you were solving problems with others? Is that something that you are familiar with from your past as well?
I would actually say yes, because I think like for me, some of this connection or like creating that connection came naturally. Because like even as a small kid, like my mom and my grandmom were like that. So we lived in like a joint family with my grandparents with us. And like my mom's a retired school teacher. And both of them like even within the small neighborhood or community, like if there were, so my grandmom had an extensive garden with all sorts of flowers and fruits and things growing. So anytime like there was like a big harvest of like any particular fruit, then she would like walk up to all the neighbors and go give it to them. And then like that will like start a conversation. They'll be there talking to each other, and then somebody else might cook something and then give it back to her. And the community like being there for each other, and like since my mom was in school, being a teacher, so sometimes when a neighboring kid had to be picked up, then she would volunteer to pick up that kid along with us. Or if somebody had to like be away for a while, then my mom might probably like cook and give them a meal for their kids for the 2-3 days that the parents are away or something. So I think that being there for each other, that connection, I think I saw it growing up in my mom and my grandmom, and I think that kind of came to me as well. And like even back like when I was in school or like within my neighborhood, so I had like some of my next door neighbors who were my schoolmates within the same school who were my friends, and there were some other neighbors who were actually going to a different school or something, but they were also my friends. And I like when we were like playing together or we were doing like some holiday activity or something together, so this set and this set basically wouldn't know each other, so I would then try to bring them together and say, okay, this person also lives in the next road and this person lives in the opposite to us, but then goes to a different school, so we don't know her or we don't know him. And then like, so basically then our friend circle becomes bigger, we have a bigger group to play with. So I think like getting those connections or like introducing people to each other, bringing them all together, I think I was doing that like even as a kid.
I love that. And probably you were also, because you were learning from your grandmom and your mom and how they were bringing the family, and you said it was a big family, but bringing the family together, I'm sure you brought that family feel to the friendships as well. And what a gift, probably for maybe some of your friends that didn't necessarily have that family feel either. Like if your friend group now is doubled, what a gift that is to the ones in your community. That is amazing. How fun. And
Yeah.
So were you also a planner, like for the planners out there that are listening to this, were you planning events for those groups too?
So I wouldn't say like big planning as a kid, but yeah, like planning our play dates together or like, so and that's another thing like we used to do is like, so since I knew so many of them individually as friends, and like and some of them were more like even family friends. My moms knew their moms and they were all together.
Yeah.
So like I will plan and say, okay, so if we are playing board games today, I know you have Monopoly, you have Uno, you have this, so let's bring this all together. So we have like different set of games and we have like 10 different games to play with, and then duplications and things like that. So that kind of planning, yes, I used
You're
to do.
already organizing. No duplicates.
Yes.
And what's so cool about that, even how you're talking about that work environment that you had, that everyone was bringing literally something to the table or to the project. And it wasn't that any one game that you had was the game, but it was just the combination of bringing people together, that you're all bringing what you can to the table. They're part of the mix. It's not just that you're planning everything, you're getting all the games together and inviting everyone, but they all have a hand in and some ownership in making that work, which is so cool. Can I ask where your grandmother's garden was? Was that
so this is back in India. No, this is back in India. So basically me, my husband and son moved to Canada just 5 years ago. So
yeah.
So all of this is back in India.
In Saskatchewan, my aunt had a huge garden, and they were more in a farm environment. So they had, your neighbors were very far away, a couple miles away, but she would actually package up some of the harvest from her garden, and then she would go from farm to farm to farm and also pass out some of it because it was huge. There's no way they could have eaten it themselves. And there is definitely something to a wider community than just our immediate family. And what a gift that is. That must have been amazing. Were you in more of a town or a city?
So it was more of a city. And in fact, so one of my neighbors from back there and one of my school classmates from back when I was in grade 6, 7. So I think from grade 6 to 10, we were in the same class together. So 2 of those friends are in Canada and they came here like way before me. So they were like my connection when I initially came here. I was new here and I didn't know places. Like those were the 2 ladies who helped me with like everything, like make the connections here, tell me like, okay, where to go for groceries, where should I go look for schools and things like that. So
beautiful.
Yeah, so I think some of those contacts like are still my contacts.
Are still contacts. Are they in Toronto too?
Yes, they are on
Oh,
summer too.
amazing. That's amazing. So how has it been? They do say that after 5 years, a place feels like, or starts to feel like home. Do you feel like it is feeling like home for you here?
I think yes. So like, yeah, I think we're like putting down more roots.
One of the reasons I was reading this because I've moved a lot with my girls. I moved a lot years ago, and and they said because that's when you start seeing people in the mall that you might know from a different community, or you'll connect with somebody that was on a project 3 years ago or whatever. It just feels like, now you know people from before, even
Yes,
though you didn't
yes,
grow up with them. That's pretty
yes.
special that you've got people from home there that can help you navigate what does it mean to live where you are now. Beautiful.
Yeah, and now like I had an ex baby here, so I have a daughter who just turned 2,
Uh
and like these were the contacts, these were the friends who like even helped me like when I had to like go into the hospital for my delivery. Like so, one of these friends said, "Okay, it's okay, leave your son with us. Forget about it. We'll handle things, and can you can be sure that your son's taken care of and things like that." And it was in the middle of a pandemic, so which meant my family from back in India couldn't come. Or yeah,
uh
so yeah, these friends were like family when I needed them.
that's amazing. And how old is your son now?
My son's 10, my daughter's 2.
Uh, and pretty special as things are opening up again, that they actually get to, well, probably your daughter for sure, probably have a new friend group and expand their experience as well with community, which given where you've come from, I'm sure that you'll want to be giving that to them as well as a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love the safety and the connection and this family feel. When people are joining AAP in your region, how
Mm-hmm.
are you actually bringing that kind of family feel with the board, with the executive, but even you personally? How are you bringing that to the ones that are joining the branch there?
I think like with the board, I think thankfully like the rest of my board also feels similar in terms of connections and in terms of like that belonging. Like
Mm.
like now since I took on as the president, I've had the treasurer leave, I've had like the social media person go on leave, and then I've had the newsletter person go off in between. And when these things happen, like the whoever was left out, so everybody like pitched in. Somebody said, okay, I'll start doing the newsletter, I'll start like helping out with social media. So somebody was like, okay, I'll update the website, you create the graphic content, then I'll post it. So I think it's like they all like work that way. We all like work together, and we don't have say defined things saying, okay, this is social media, so I will only do this and I will only do that. So everybody is like willing to contribute, and like everybody basically wants to succeed as a group, and everybody wants to give back as much as possible to the members. So that way, I think I should say, thank God I have a fabulous team. And it's the same thing like with members. So I basically want to give them the feeling of the same connection, the same belonging, and the fact that they can come to us or they can come to the rest of the community for any kind of help, or maybe it's just you had a bad day, you want to talk to somebody, so you have somebody to just listen to you. It can be anything. So basically, this year, so after I took on as president, we came up with the concept of having bi-weekly coffee chats. You have an option of like asking a question or giving a topic that you want to talk about, or you can just turn up and like I said, you can talk about a problem you're having at work, or it can even be like, okay, what's your favorite show in Netflix that you're currently watching? And if you have another person in the group watching the same thing, you can discuss about it. But basically, like a platform, a forum where you can you can just come and talk. You can just come and be yourself and discuss about issues, or just casually have a conversation, or maybe just take a break from like many of us are doing like hybrid and virtual and all sorts of different combinations of work. So maybe like just take time out for a coffee break and like come chat, like unplug from your work for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Is
we
that
are
something that you're running just virtually, or is that in person as well?
no, so that's now only like virtually, because one is like, even with Toronto, since it's GTA, it's geographically quite big, and we have people from all over the place. So we do one at 11 a.m. in the morning when people would normally take their morning breaks, and we do one at 3 p.m. in the evening, which is like your evening break time. So, and it's just half an hour via Zoom. So like you could log in from your desk, or if you're like walking down to grab a coffee, you could like call in from the coffee place, and then you could talk. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And we have seen this shift, I think, where through COVID, which I think is so beautiful, but it has become way more accessible to be part of a group like AAP. Yes, face to face, and I will always love the energy of being face to face with people as well. But I think the accessibility that we are creating, and I think what I've seen through AAP and all branches across Canada, there is this discussion and I think the focus on accessibility now that is such a gift to know, and not just that you are just for women, but I think a lot of women do feel like you're juggling a lot of things and you have to make very important choices around your career and family and all the things that we want in life, to make something like that coffee chat accessible. That's I think a really beautiful sort of shout out to your members to say that we care, and it might only be half an hour, but we want to connect with you in ways that will make sense to you.
In terms of, yes, to make things accessible is why, like I said, we have these coffee chats at 11, at 3, and then our typical, the monthly speaker series or monthly sessions happen at 7 in the evening. So for those who actually go into full-time work and only have the evenings to spare, so they can join in for the evening ones. And so we, as a Toronto branch, also now have a lot of students from Seneca College here who are also now our admin members from this year. Basically, it's like a collaboration with the college, and so all students who register for their administrative programs there also become our members. So just last week, I was like reaching out to their college and their coordinators to understand, like, from a student standpoint, like, what do they want? What do they expect from an association? Because currently all we are doing is like around like what our members who are like already in the corporate, already working are like looking for. So trying to understand from their lens, like what do they want or what are they looking for, and trying to incorporate like their ideas as well, and try to deliver like programs or events which like are useful to them as well. And like even like for our holiday social, we had an in-person lunch thing in November, and it was nice to see like we had people from like who are like fresh into college, and we had a couple of our senior members, lifetime members, who are in their 60s and who are retired, and who are like now people like me who are like currently like probably in the prime of their career in corporate. And it was nice to see like all of these groups interacting, and like how a person who's like retired can like mentor or advise a kid who's just in school in college to tell them, okay, so this is what I did, so this is what I did wrong, so maybe you shouldn't do that, like when you get into working.
It's like you're putting your head over the cubicle and saying, hey.
So those conversations were really nice to listen to and be a part of.
This whole conversation has really centered around feeling safe and the family feel, and the idea that we're all on the same playing field. And I love how practically that is showing up, that the students that are coming into their careers, that they may not necessarily be young, but they're new to what this means to be an admin. And then to have some that have been there a long time that are feeding in, just like a family would. The idea is that they stick with this for a long time, even if it might take different iterations and different twists and turns in your career.
Yes.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful picture. I think it's so important. I love how you've described what connection is and what that means to you. How could we take some of that and put that in motion in the days to come?
I think like what I would like really like to say is like, yes, connections are like really, really important. And like we all should like make time, put in effort to make those connections and maintain those connections, because I feel even even as a whole world or a community, I think it's really more healthier, more nice to have those connections, have a community, and basically even having that connection, having somebody to talk to. I think it reduces your stress, it reduces your tension, and I think you overall feel nice having those kind of conversations and having those connections. And it's kind of like the like an act of kindness. You do something for somebody and they do something back to you, and I think it's always reciprocative and basically gives you a good feeling.
and probably like you having a child in the middle of COVID and your family couldn't come, and you have those connections that you have built over time that are willing to be there for you and show up for you and be that support for you. I think that can be, even in our careers, as we start to create those connections with others, we never know when we're truly going to need the connections in our lives.
Yeah. And I think even as admin professionals, like you said, many a times where we are acting behind the scene, and if you're in smaller organizations, and if you're the only admin, and so it's you're always in the shadow, so it can sometimes get lonely, feel isolated. So if not within your office environment, it's always good to have a connection outside, or have your own circle of friends, your own community outside, because so that way you feel you belong, you feel those connections, and you don't feel lonely. It's less stressful.
Yeah, beautiful. How can people find you? How can they find you to continue this conversation? And how can they tap into AAP if they're interested to learn more?
So on the AAP's website, on the Toronto branch page, you have my president email ID, so they can reach out to me there. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn.
And what is the website for AAP Canada?
It's the canadianadmin.ca.
.ca. Perfect. And I know we've known each other for a little while, but I know that you would be more than happy to lead someone through and have that conversation on what it means, and even just to send the link for the coffee chat, because that cannot be such a beautiful start to a long-term relationship, just to have a conversation. So thank you so much. I so appreciate this conversation with you today, Preethi, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. And next time in Toronto, we will for sure go for a real-time coffee.
Yes, definitely we should.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting, where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.